Alrighty folks, so for the past couple days I've been working here on this 12 by 12 by 18 Exoterra. It's going to be for some Rhinitomea dart frogs most likely. We'll see what I end up slapping in here after it's all built. I've got some bromeliads over here, some extra plants I'm excited to be working with. So today we're going to be covering sort of the aesthetic construction and finishing of a back. I've already done my construction with great stuff, expanding foam, a little bit of silicone, and installed my cork bark and some driftwood into the back of this terrarium. We're going to need those on. For this video we're going to be talking about some of the aesthetics. We're going to cover painting your back with some black latex paint and siliconeing substrate to the foam. Here we go. Okay, so upon a little bit of reflection, I've decided I'm actually going to start with painting the back. Alrighty, so I'm going to be doing somewhat of a tape caulk line. Probably won't caulk it, but we're going to do some tape lines around the edges, just to make things a little bit less messy, keep things clean. For now we're just going to be taping these edges. I will most likely be painting these sides later. So for now, we're just going to slap a piece of tape around everything that we don't want paint on and paint the back. Just a blue painter's tape. What's nice about this is it's semi-low tack, so that means it has not as much glue on it, so it doesn't leave residue and get super sticky and cause a bunch of problems when you go to remove it from a surface. So we're going to get that guy on there. We're just doing a real basic framing. If you don't really know how to work with tape, it's kind of hard to mess it up. It's not rocket science, but just take your time and make sure it covers everything that you don't want to get painted, because it's a lot easier to just tape properly than it is to clean paint up later. Notice that this tape doesn't stick super well to silicone, so if you have some excess silicone hanging out on the outside of your joints, you can always clean it up if you feel the need to. No one's ever really going to be looking at the back though, so it's not super important. This is really more about sealing light from the back, so when you're looking in from the viewing portion of the terrarium, you don't see through it to whatever's behind your stand, your cords and everything else. I think that's going to be nice solid line of what we need it to be. I've put down a drop cloth as well because nobody likes paint all over the place. I have been a painter for quite some time, but paint never does what you want it to. It goes all over the place. So again, for sake of just staying clean, not only am I putting down a drop cloth, I'm tossing on some gloves. Might be advisable to do this in a slightly more ventilated area than I'm doing here, or to do it in your garage. Or to wear a mask or something. I personally am not super concerned with that. If you are, feel free to do whatever you think is necessary. So I'm going to use this for our purposes. One thing that is important whenever you're using a roller with painting is to take a piece of tape and wrap it around the roller in order to get some of the gummies out that might be in there. Gummies will cause smears and boogies and bumps and stuff in your paint job, and it's no fun. And my roommate needs something. What's up there, Bubs? Need some scissors? Couldn't find them. They might be here. Maybe in the garage. I thought you took them. What do you need them for? Cut it. Get it good.
Cut it just like you're going to have to cut this scene.
I don't mind it. Ah. See that? He smacked me, folks.
I did that.
Alrighty. Back to it. I went to Home Depot, just got a quart of this black paint. It's flat. They say it's flat. I imagine it's going to have a little bit of sheen, but that won't matter so much because The only place anyone's going to be viewing it is through glass, so no matter how flat the paint is, it's going to have some sheen to it because glass is shiny, for those of you that don't know that. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to dump some of this paint out onto a piece of cardboard and just roll it with the roller to get it coated. I'm going to coat this really quickly and try and keep the paint wet, and I'm going to use a pretty large brush to back brush it all one direction to try and eliminate some brush strokes. Okay, so that is what we're going to get for our first coat. After thinking about it here for a few minutes while I was painting, it's not going to take terribly long for this to dry, and I have all night. I'll try and give it just enough time to be ready for a second coat. I'll apply that, give it a little while, flip it, probably put some stuff underneath it, trying to keep the paint job off of whatever surface it's on, and then we're going to pack substrate onto the foam. Be right back. Alrighty folks, so this here is pretty dry now. We've got a little bit of moisture left over in one spot that was a little heavy, but I think it's ready for our second coat. So just like we did before, we're gonna pop on some gloves, roll out some paint, grab our brush that I wrapped in some plastic a little while ago, roll on a coat just like we did before. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about that. So yeah, be back in a few. Alrighty everyone, so now for all intents and purposes, this paint is dry. Next portion is we're going to be siliconing the back with some substrate and some cocoa coir and a mixture of coir and sphagnum. For that I'm going to have to flip it over. I laid down this board so I have just a little bit more workspace and a little bit of a sturdier platform on which to set my terrarium. I've also got a couple shims here, so hopefully I can keep the paint job protected a little bit. Next, I'm going to show you guys sort of how I might put together some substrate for a back. I've been evolving this idea over a series of a couple terrariums, my whole collection over there. So this is just, what is it, Eco Earth cocoa coir, and then this is just sphagnum for potting. You can get it at any Home Depot department store. A lot of people like to use terrarium moss, but as long as it's not dyed and not treated, it should be safe. I've never had an issue with this moss in particular. I've used it for probably about 5 years in my terrariums. If you want something that's going to bloom into live moss eventually, or going to be a little prettier for more decoration or decorative purposes, you may want to buy a terrarium moss, but it's super costly. A bag like this, a bag that's like half of this is like maybe $20, and this is like $3 at Home Depot. So I've got a little mixing bin here with my cocoa coir and a nice deli cup, the all-purpose tool of the terrarium hobbyist. So I guess I'm gonna do maybe 2 or 3 scoops of this. It's important to mix up more than you need for your backing, so you can really layer it on there and pack it thoroughly. You want to pack it like an inch or two deep on the entirety of the surface you're trying to cover. Feel like that'll be enough, but just in case it's not, splash for good measure. Next, I'm going to grab my sphagnum. I often do sphagnum and cocoa in like a 2-to-1 mixture. Today it's going to be a little different. Also, when I'm making substrate, I leave my sphagnum with heavier grains and larger pieces, so it holds more moisture and creates more drainage and things like that, a little more loamy. For this, I'm going to really, really grind it up as best as I can. Okay, I think this is going to be a pretty nice, workable mixture. Got it to a nice sort of homogeneous looking mixture. Trying to get my focus here. Something that's just nice, dry, loose, going to pack onto the background really nicely. Okay, so we've got this guy propped up. If you noticed, I added some shims underneath to keep the paint job a little protected while we're in the process of doing this. I think it's coming together nicely. I think this is going to be a good build. I'm really excited. So basically the process here is I'm going to cover every inch of this foam as much as humanly possible with a good thick layer of silicone. For doing that, I'm going to have to wear some latex gloves and be really cautious and thorough in the process. After it's covered in silicone really thoroughly and really thickly, I'm going to come in with the substrate and pack it down onto the silicone. And we basically let it dry, cure, and sit overnight, even 48 hours if possible, but 12 to 24 hours is more than enough. Another thing it's very important to remember and make sure that your soil when you're doing this is as dry as possible. So I'm going to move the camera on in, cut to that. Okay. We're all set up, and here we go. Alrighty, folks. So it has been about 24 hours, give or take, a little bit less, since I siliconed this back. Silicone should be cured and dried at this point. Nothing feels moist. Seems like it's stuck on there pretty well. So we're going to stand this up and remove the excess substrate from the back, dust it off a little bit. Hopefully it stuck where we wanted it to. If it didn't, I think on this build I'm just going to supplement with some sphagnum moss. Just kind of pack it in there. Yeah, let's see how it went. I'm excited. Okay. Alrighty, I think this is going to be just fine. You can see now that the cocoa has stuck all to all this silicone that we added last night. And for the most part, all of the spray foam has been covered with substrate. This is going to let plants attach to the back, going to hold in some moisture, and ultimately just make it look a lot nicer. So yeah, I'm very pleased with how this one went. I appreciate you guys watching, and hope to catch you soon.